'Twas the time of creation, no mortals in sight. God sat and he pondered, I must get this right. For 5 days I've toiled with my mystical tricks, but what should I do now? Today is day 6. I could create man in my image. That's good. A voice above echoed, if you can, you should. You see, God was not first, though the Bible's contrary. The voice that God heard then, none other than Larry. His voice it has echoed through history's course, commanding you do it, if you can, of course. From creation right up to the Super Bowl past, that Larry's inspired us, a spell he has cast. Let's take a brief look at some things quite extreme. You'll see that things often are not what they seem. The heroes and villains, admired by us so, were inspired to their greatness by someone we know. In the Garden of Eden lived Adam and Eve, heeding God's word, with no tricks up their sleeve. But the fruit in that tree looked to them awfully good. Should we eat it? A voice whispered, if you can, you should. Eve thought it a serpent, that voice that she heard. She reached for an apple, heeding its word. It echoed and flowed with such biblical ease. The voice, it was Larry, that man Calabrese. Columbus, we all know, discovered this land. But here's something that all of you must understand. When denied his first funding, he gave up for good, till a voice uttered, Chris, if you can, then you should. That voice, yes, you guessed it, from heaven above, our leader named Larry, the one we all love. It wasn't Columbus that we've got to thank. It was Calabrese who put real gas in his tank. Robin Hood's mission, according to lore, was to steal from the rich and then give to the poor. These acts were committed not just for the thrill. A voice, he said, urged him, if you can, you will. Before crossing the Delaware, Washington paused. This feat was so daunting. Would it help the cause? While pondering options, as any man would, from the bow came a shout, if you can, then you should. Long time ago, our historians say, a battle took place down Oriskany way. With General Herkimer leading the charge, the odds that he'd lose were incredibly large. At the height of the battle, the front had been crossed. The troops were surrounded, young lives being lost. With Herkimer propped up against an old tree, it looked like the enemy smelled victory. Herkimer wounded, losing hope on that day, who to his troops could point out the right way? I could lift my arm, the one limb that's good. A voice from behind yelled, if you can, you should. And who shall forget that great night in 6-9? Man stepped on the moon for the very first time. Lair was there, helping Armstrong, his courage to find, if you can, then you should, one giant step for mankind. Yes, politicians heed Larry's advice. Just ask Bob Dole with a problem not nice. Erectile dysfunction may not be so good. If he takes his Viagra, he can, so he should. The Super Bowl battle of Sunday just passed. In the last 60 seconds, the scores changed so fast. The Panthers had tied it, a minute to go. It looked like an overtime game for this show. Brady went to the sidelines. There's not time enough. My kicker's been jinxed, and these Panthers are tough. From behind the coach shouted our Rotary son, if you can, then you should. So he did, and they won. Even at halftime, while dancing was hot, Larry was egging on Janet's big plot. Shall I reveal my right breast? She asked Lair. The response, yes, you should, if you can, and you dare. We find as our history charted its course, omnipresence of Larry, with little remorse. If you can, then you should, we hear day after day. He tells us that is the Rotary way. He's everywhere, everywhere, this Calabrese. When will these echoing words ever cease? Burning and searing, this unending chant. Larry, please stop it. He won't, 'cause he can't.